Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As I step out onto my front porch, I notice all the beautiful trees that surround me. When's the last time anyone's actually stood outside, took a look at a tree and wondered to itself, if I had just sat, stayed quiet, and attuned myself, what would that tree tell me? Would it tell me maybe you're working too hard, you need to relax a little bit more? When's the last time you actually barefoot ran through the grass, came up and actually hugged me? Let me know just how I was doing and what I was up to. On the program today, we're going to be joined with Joan Klosterman-Ketels, and she is the author of the book HumaniTrees, Exploring Human Nature Through the Spirit of Trees. It's a wonderful, delightful book that you'll find as you look through, you'll see the character, the personality, and the traits that the trees can be telling us about who we are, where we are in this world, and what we can do to be better stewards, not just to ourselves, but to the world that surrounds us. And I'd like to welcome to the program today our guest, Ms. Joan Klosterman-Ketels. Joan, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today.
Thank you, Daniel.
Now,
Great to be here.
How did you begin to explore this endeavor in creating the book HumaniTrees?
It started about 10 years ago. My husband and I would take a vacation to a lake, forest sort of area, not too far from where we lived, and we did daily walks around the lake, and I guess over time I just started noticing these trees, mostly in the spring and fall when the leaves had fallen away, and it was almost like they were beckoning me, and I started to see these characters kind of present themselves to me, personalities. Some were actual faces in the trees, some were more abstract than that, and at some point, over the past 10 years, I decided maybe I should take my camera out and try and capture these characters. So I started to take the pictures with a manual camera, which was a challenge because I would never really know if I captured what I was actually seeing. So with the digital cameras, it was great because I could see immediately whether I was capturing the character I was seeing immediately, and it made taking these pictures much easier and less challenging. So, I guess over the years, they were basically beckoning me and kind of drawing me into them. And then about 7 years ago, I was going through a major health transition in my life. I was going through breast cancer, and part of my healing process was to spend as much time around and among the trees as I possibly could. And that was truly when all of this sort of came together for me, and the true characters of the trees were kind of pulling for me and wrapping themselves around me. I could feel their energy and their healing every time I would walk out among the trees during that whole breast cancer episode. And I really felt wrapped in their energy and could truly feel their healing power. And so I started to notice, most people look at trees and they really notice them when the leaves are in full color. For me, it was more about seeing the bones of the trees and looking beyond the leaves to the actual bones. And that was, whenever I looked past the leaves and into the bones, I could see all kinds of really amazing just personalities and characters, and started to capture them on, with my camera. And I don't know, one day I was looking over all of the pictures, and I thought, this really needs to be shared with other people out there because they were so compelling. So many of these characters were so compelling, and they have so many stories to tell. So that was, about 2 years ago, I contacted Press, who is the publisher, Findhorn Press, and it was actually the first and only publisher I sent the book to. And I knew when I read the submission guidelines, it said no photo books, no coffee table books, and no poetry. And I thought, I felt kind of compelled to send it to them. I felt like that was who needed to publish the book, and so I decided to go ahead and send it anyway to this publisher who's based in the UK. And within a couple of months, they decided to publish the first book, HumaniTrees, and then within the following year, they went ahead and decided to publish the second book, HumaniTrees. And it's just been quite a journey. It's really kind of a fun story because I had no idea. I didn't know about the publisher in advance. I found them in they published one of my favorite authors, and that's who kind of guided me to them, I think.
Oh.
And so it was sort of allowing the process to happen over time. It was very fortuitous, I guess, and it was supposed to happen, apparently. And these characters really, really needed to be out there, and I guess the right people will find them, who need them in their lives when they need them.
Now, as you were being engaged in this project and I guess communicating with trees, what were some things that actually surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise for me was, how you walk a certain path, like daily I walk about 3 miles around a lake, and frequently, once I started paying attention to these characters, I noticed all kinds of things that I had never seen before. I noticed one in particular that I must have walked by 50 times and never saw it until one day there it was. And so I think you see what you need to see when you need to see it. And the characters that show up are there for a reason, I think. And there's one in the first book called Joyous that was hidden way up above on a hill that I had never noticed before, and I was having a particularly challenging day that day. And when I looked up and saw that character, it just filled my heart with joy, and it made me, really, really happy, and it made me forget about what was going on in my life, just that brief encounter with that character. So I guess the surprise would be, you can walk by these trees 25, 50 times and not see something, but depending on the time of day and how the light is hitting the trees and the shadows, like I keep saying, you see what you need to see when you need to see it, and the trees are there, and they're waiting to help you heal. They're just a really great source of wonderful energy if you take the time to, step out and be with them.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've always noticed, that I've always loved about trees, as you depict in your book, especially, is their characteristic, their character. No two trees are exactly alike. They may be of the same species, but they certainly grow in their own unique ways. And especially when you look at trees with the large branches, the way they just kind of come out, it's almost as though you can hear these branches growing, especially if they've got a good few years being alive. And I find it fascinating how you decided to use the different words in depicting the particular pictures that you feature here in your book, and then you have a quotation. How did you come to kind of match those together? Is that what the tree was actually telling you?
Well, and I'm not sure, since this is radio, just to give a little background on what the books are like. They're 7x7 hardcover, basically coffee table books. And on the right side of the page is a picture of a tree, and then on the left-hand side is a caption and a quote that yes, I think that's a great question. I haven't had that question asked very often when I do these interviews. And we started out, and when I say we, my husband and I really did this project together. We worked on this, he was my sounding board through the whole process. And so as I started to see the characters, at first I thought the book should just be the tree pictures by themselves because I thought they spoke for themselves. But when we started to share the pictures alone with various family members and friends, sometimes they would see something and sometimes they wouldn't. And that was when we thought, it's sort of like writing. Sometimes you just need a little help to get off the blank page. And that was when we thought, maybe putting a caption with this would help. And the captions are matched as far as the trees. The captions are what I see with the trees, but it doesn't mean that whoever is looking at that picture shouldn't be able to see what they actually see. And it might not be the same thing that I see. Mm-hmm. It's basically there. We put the captions on to basically help people get off the blank page and start really looking at the trees and seeing what they see. And it's been really fun because a lot of people, as I'm out doing book signings and hearing from people on the website, so many people have their own tree stories to tell. First of all, everyone seems to have their favorite tree memory from childhood, and people are starting to send pictures into our photo gallery on our website, which is great. We want more and more pictures, so I would encourage your listeners to get their cameras out and start taking tree pictures and send them in, because I'm hoping that one of my next projects will be a compilation book of pictures that people submit, seeing what they see. And also one of my other projects I'm hoping to do is a children's version of this book, specifically for kids. I've been using these books with Iowa Public Television to do programs for Earth Week and Arbor Day, and they're really, really fun. And the kids get the pictures, it seems like they really see it. And there's all kinds of really fun activities that are tree-related that we can, that are actually on the website with links. There's a lot to. On the website, it's personalitriesbook.com. So, again, I would encourage people to submit their own tree pictures, and if they want to put a caption with them, we would encourage them to do so, because I think it just helps us focus in on what the photographer is seeing, but then to know it's okay. You can see what you see in that picture as well. There's no boundaries or guidelines saying that this is what you have to see.
Okay. Now, one of the ones that I really enjoyed that I felt stood out because of its character and the way that you actually photographed it is the one that you had entitled Otherworldly. And it's one where it looks like a tree is stretching out, not just forward, but up and out, but then it looks like it's on fire at the same time, but only in certain areas of the tree. Tell us about that.
That was a picture that is actually a little bit more abstract than some of them. I don't know if you would agree with that. I mean, some of them, like shy, looks just, there's a face in the tree, and it looks like a person who is acting sort of shy. Otherworldly, when I saw that scene, it's actually a scene around the lake where we live, and to me, it just between the actual picture and the colors that were there, it seemed just surreal, and that the two trees that are kind of leaning are yearning for something and reaching, out to the universe, and the whole scene just seemed surreal to me. And then when I saw the picture back after I took it, because sometimes, like I said, sometimes they show what I was actually seeing and sometimes they don't. This one actually surprised me because of the colors that came through, and so much more going on in the actual photo than I could even see standing there, because it was captured, and it just seemed like all kinds of energy and spirit was going on in that photo, in that scene.
Sometimes it takes a really innate intuition to be able to put together what you've been able to accomplish here in your book, HumaniTrees, and that is when you bring together the quotes that you have on the opposite page, whether they be from poets or spiritual leaders, whatever have you. How did you, I guess, instinctively come to bring the quotes together with the pictures that you feature here of these trees?
The quotes were quite a process, actually, because we definitely were looking for public domain, meaning that the people who wrote the quotes have been gone for over 100 years. So it required some research, and I tried to find quotes that didn't actually use the word, the caption in the quotes, although some of the quotes do have the caption included in the quote. Typically I would find 4 or 5 quotes that seem to work with the caption and the picture, and then for those 5 quotes, then I basically really needed to let it come to me. I needed to let it surface. In the first book, we went through almost a focus group process for the quotes, because we wanted to make sure that this whole thing came together and spoke to as many people as we could possibly get it, to speak to. And there was a professor, Alan Hunter, out in the East Coast, who actually took the top 3 quotes that we had chosen for each of the pictures. He took them to several of his classes and asked his students which of the quotes they thought matched best. For the second book, I found 3 to 5 quotes for every caption, and then I basically, in the spring of this year, I sat out on my deck and kind of let it come to me, and it took many hours, probably hundreds of hours, to finally. I know the book looks very simple and uncomplicated, but there's a lot of thought that went into finding exactly the right pieces for each picture. So, hopefully we accomplished that. And when I get feedback from folks out there who see the book, a lot of comments, I expect that a lot of the comments would be about the trees and the pictures, but I can't tell you how many comments I get about the quotes, and that people are really moved by the quotes.
Now, one of them that I really enjoyed was Hand of God. Now, that was a really unique tree just because of it looks like exactly what the caption says, but at the same time, it also looks like one of those trees that if you weren't around for a while would probably be somewhere else if you went back to the exact spot where you took the photo.
That's an interesting comment. That photo was actually taken by, and we have 2 guest photos in HumaniTrees, which I was very excited about. And this is a neighbor and a friend of mine, actually, who took Hand of God when he was traveling, I think, in Louisiana. And he brought this picture back to me thinking that we would post it on the website, which we did. But it was such a great picture, I thought it needed to be in the book. And so it was wonderful to be able to include that guest photo, and then there's another guest photo by Bob Long called Sleepy. And the tree looks like he's yawning. Just an exact replica of a yawn. And so this is what I'm talking about. I mean, I think there are so many people out there. I would just love to someday put a compilation book together of just pictures of what other people are seeing out there and the kinds of characters that they're finding. It's really great fun to see those come in.
I know there's one quote in here that's really tied in with a wonderful photograph, and that is the quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. There is an optical illusion about every person we meet. And then you title this particular photograph Show Off.
I love that photo. It's one of my favorites. And that was a really, really difficult shot to get, frankly. Mm-hmm. We were on our boat, and this little tree structure was kind of by the bank in the lake, just there all by itself, but there was some pieces of wood behind it, so we had to get the boat positioned exactly right to hide everything except what looks like the arm and the leg, and then to get the reflection of that in the water. It was quite a challenge to get that photo, but oh my gosh, once I got the photo that I was looking for, it was pretty exciting, and I do love that quote with it.
Nothing like being a show-off, especially. But, that's the other thing, too, is that a lot of times, when I was reading that and I was looking at that photo, as I thought to myself, a lot of times we get so caught up in our world, the way we see and we experience it, that everything around us we seem to take for granted. Trees are certainly one of those things that I believe a lot of times people do. Just think about it. Without trees, there'd be no oxygen.
Exactly.
These wonderful beings do this free of charge. And I remember that, for instance, in the trilogy of Lord of the Rings, if you remember in the second part of the trilogy, is when they bring in the trees. And the trees are saying, that these people have abused us for a long, long time, and things are about to change. And the fact is, here they provide shade. They provide, for instance, heat. We use trees, for fires to cook our food, for protection. It's so unique and dynamic about what a tree does that I remember one time when I was with a girl, I said, why don't you go over there and just hug that tree and tell me what you feel? And it was really interesting when she said, at first she said, I felt funny about it because you were watching me. And I said, no, actually I kind of went off and was doing my own thing. But I said, really hug it. Just spend time with it and tell me what you feel. And she says, I've never felt a greater sense of energy and love. When I really let myself go and just do it. First I was worried about how I looked. What am I doing hugging a tree? What is anybody going to think? But of course it was, at nighttime, so there weren't too many people watching, if anybody at all, besides myself. And I said, but what did you feel about that? And she says, it was almost like my own history was being told to me.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. I would like to hear more about that. that is amazing. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I tell you, I keep talking about the bones of the trees, and if you're wrapping your arm around a tree, you're definitely connecting with the bones of the tree. And I think there's so much in there. We have a discussion guide in HumaniTrees. I added that because I really want people to start thinking about, how they can integrate and incorporate trees back into their lives, back into education or family activities, and to really maybe see trees in a whole different way than what we're used to. Just not just the beauty of them, but to see trees as great teachers of transition. As we all get older, we are moving into like a lot of unknown territory that, for a lot of us might not be so comfortable, the aging body. And if we're watching how the trees age and how they bend and not break, and how their trees just really know how to be. And even when branches break off of the tree, and I think, in the book I actually have pictures of just branches of trees, like there's one laying in the leaves, and to me it looked like they were a tree doing angels in the snow, except it was angels in the leaves. And so to be able to accept the changes that are happening in our lives. That particular tree is on page 33, and I called it Carefree. And it's a piece of a tree. It's not an actual tree. It's laying on the ground, and it just looks really, really happy. And the quote says, "He does not seem to me to be a free man who does not sometimes do nothing." And to just be. And I think that's a huge lesson that we can learn from the trees, and particularly the bones of the trees. Sometimes we just need to let nature show us the way, and trees are truly great teachers of that kind of transition in our lives.
I think the other wonderful aspect about a book such as yours, for those of you tuning in, it's HumaniTrees is the book, Exploring Human Nature Through the Spirit of Trees, is that as a person reads through and experiences the work that you've produced here, that they start stepping out into the world, off of their front porch or into a forest or perhaps a park, or even looking out of their office building, as they begin to see, hey, they're really active, they're alive, and they're entertaining, and they're trying to let me know, hey, everything's okay if you just appreciate who I am. And it's a matter of tuning in. It's a matter of being quiet to be able to receive that message. How has that transformed you in this particular project?
Oh, I wish I could find the words. There's so many.
Leave it up to the tree.
Absolutely. It's even my breathing, when I go out and just be out there, where we live now, we moved to this location by a lake, by a forest 4 years ago as part of, my healing process. And I can't tell you just what a difference it's made to be able to be immersed in the number of trees that are around, and to, as the wind blows, to kind of methodically tune into the breathing, my breathing with the wind that's blowing through the trees. It's incredible, and they're so healing. It's such a great healing energy. And, I guess the book, actually both books, are, an attempt, I guess, like I keep saying, I was compelled to do this book for some reason. The trees were beckoning me, and I was supposed to do something with these pictures and with this concept. And for people, it's a great gift for people who need to slow down, people who are healing from whatever is going on in their lives, whether it's emotional or physical. It's just a really nice, you can open it, read as much as you want, think about it, not think about it. It's just a very contemplative, sort of meditative book that you can just get absorbed in, and I guess it will be to people what it's supposed to be when they need it. And I get a lot of different comments back, but mostly, what people say is, I can't look at trees the same way ever again after seeing your book, which is great, which is, hey, I'm happy to hear that they're paying attention. And I would love for families to, go out and do tree spirit walks together. The economy is in a not very good way right now here in the United States, right? So a lot of people are doing staycations. This is a great way. Hand cameras to your kids, go out for a walk, and see what you can see out there, and get the kids immersed in something other than their computers and Wii's, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, Joan, is there a website people can find out more about your work?
Yes, it is personalitriesbook.com. And Personalitrees is the first book, and we set up the website at that time. So it's personalitriesbook.com.
Now, tell us, what is your future work going to entail for us?
Well, I'm really, really hoping that we can follow through on a compilation book. We are getting more and more pictures sent for the website, and I just think to encourage people to get out and take these pictures, it would be such a wonderful, fun project to, do this compilation, but then also a children's version of this book. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of waiting for that whole thing to come together in my mind. But I do know that is definitely something I want to do. Maybe because I'm a grandmother of 4 now, mm-hmm. and I'm just really anxious to be able to share that with my grandkids and get them out there and have some sort of maybe workbook or some sort of really fun project book to go with this. And then I also have a book of poetry that I'm hoping to eventually get out there. And there's a poem in HumaniTrees that I don't know how much time we have, but I would love to share this poem. It's called Blind Faith.
Please do.
Because it speaks to so many things as we are growing older, kind of what happens when we get all wrapped up in lives and work and all of these things that kind of get us sideways and away from nature. So it's called Blind Faith. Sometimes to me I had a much better, seems to me I had a much better grasp of life when I was a kid. Everything just seemed to make sense. I had a purpose for being here. All of the big questions I have now made sense back then somehow. I trusted the universe to take care of me because I didn't know any better. And the God we humans so desperately want to know and love and trust was just part of me. It was a feeling of complete and utter safety and unconditional love. And if I ever, for 1 second, questioned that, all I had to do was lay down in the grass under my favorite tree and look to the stars, and life was good. No questions, no doubts, just unadulterated trust and faith in something way bigger than me.
HumaniTrees is the book. Our guest today, Joan Klosterman-Ketels. Joan, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Make sure to go out and hug your favorite tree today.
You bet. You too.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program. Be sure to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. On our blog, we should post a wonderful archive of this wonderful book. Be sure to check it out for yourself. And remember, you didn't climb trees because it was something everybody else did. You did because the tree beckoned for you to come and play with it and enjoy its wonderful splendor. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.